Now you may have noticed that I put this on first, and I took it off first when I went to disassemble. Usually you disassemble in a certain pattern and you reassemble in the reverse, but this is much easier to get on and snug up without the bracket assembly in there. So that's why I went ahead and did that. And one thing I forgot to mention was above this bottom collar, and let's see, how does this go back up here? And below the bottom collar on this is a steel washer. And you want to reuse the washer that was in there, even if you get a new one, which kind of gave me a new one, but you want to reuse this because the steel on steel is already going to be kind of worn together. And there's a washer there, it's kind of like a bearing, because that takes the most abuse of the swinging needle bar assembly. So I would leave that there because this steel's harder than aluminum, and then I would put the new aluminum on top of the old steel washer. So here we are going to go in the reverse. We have to put the collar back in, and then we're going to put the needle bar bracket, and then we have to put the spring collar and spring and tighten it all up. So let's do that part. So do I have my new one here? Yeah. Here's my new eccentric stud. So I'm going to start that up in there. I might, yeah. I'm going to start that up in there and get it right up, kind of flush with that washer. And when you go to put this on, don't put it upside down like I did before. The longer collar's at the bottom and the set screw is at the top facing you, and the stamped Singer part numbers facing you. So it goes like that. So I'm going to kind of set that in on top of that washer and get the studs started up into those two pieces. Now, if you're like me and you don't have three hands, what I do is put something under there with the hopes that, that it will kind of help me keep the stud up in there. And I'm going to have to pull that down a little, because the trickiest part of this whole thing is putting the spring collar and spring back in there. So I probably should have got a little block of wood or something, but let's go ahead and try this. So the spring collar and the spring go in there next. And I'm going to hold it with the needle nose, and can you see that end of that spring sticking out? Well, one end goes in the hole in the top of the collar so that they're together, and that end sticking out has to go inside that needle bar bracket so that you can later put tension on the spring. If you have that protrusion out in the front, it's not going to work. So you've got to kind of tuck that next to the needle bar, and this is where the third hand would be handy. And then you try and, let me pull that, try and get the stud to go up through the collar, which is not which is not too bad, but that spring just wants to swivel all around, and that's, or fall out. And that's the hardest part of this whole job. So if you've got somebody who can, hold that stud up in there or help you line that spring up carefully, you can make this less of a hassle. But let's try again. I got my steel washer on top of the collar. I've got this with the set screw on top, up high, so I know that's proper. I'm going to start that stud in there through the washer and into the bottom collar of that needle bar bracket. Now, let's try again and line up the spring part with the collar. Let's see if I can get that spring tucked in without swiveling the spring too much. And maybe while I hold it there, I can kind of push up on that stud and get it in there. Since that's not a perfectly round stud, it helps to twist it back and forth, but don't twist it in circles because it'll bind up on you. And I managed to do that. So thanks, whoever helped me with that. I know you were holding your breath for me. Thanks. Now you've got to get this stud all the way up into the top machine collar. So you just kind of keep wiggling it around and get it up there, and now I do. So this has to be all the way up and flush. So I've got my stud, the washer, collar, spring, needle bar, bracket, top machine collar all the way up, and now I want to tighten this to hold it in there. And oh man, I'm very happy that that's done. And again, you just snug it up so it doesn't slide and slip around, but you're probably going to have to do some adjustments later. So then we'll come around from the front side and we will tighten that set screw in the top collar, and we'll snug it up. Won't bear down, just snug it up for now. And this you don't have to tighten right now. I'll show you later how you put tension on the spring and adjust it. But we do need to put our hinge pin back in there through the top and line it up with the needle bar bracket, and it has to be all the way down tight like that, so that the set screw will line up with that depressed groove in the pin I was telling you about. So we'll tighten that up, snug it, not too tight, and you'll see that there's no spring thing going on. Now I've got to get the needle bar off of the old needle bar bracket and collar thing here and get it onto here. What this collar is this goes into a socket on a bracket that's on the end of the thread take-up assembly. So when that goes around and round, this is going to make your up and down motion of the needle like that. So to get the needle bar out of the needle bar bracket, you want to loosen that on the collar, and then we'll slide that needle bar right out of everything. And then I thinking I probably should have done this different. Yeah. So I'm going to have to put the needle bar in from the top. So I'm going to have to remove the needle holder, needle clamp. So that's this little screw right there. Take that all the way out so that the thread guide and the screw come off of the needle bar. Needle bar. Yeah. Get that off. Okay. And then before you can take that needle holder off, you've got to back that thumb screw way off of there, way there. Okay, so I've got to get this collar around the needle bar, so I'm going to go in from the top here, and I'm going to wait a minute, you know what, I'm going to put this into the socket there first. That's a good idea. Now I'm thinking. I told you this is only about the 4th time in 12 years I've done this, so I'll get that in there, and I'll push it back and line it up with the 2 holes, and then I can drop my needle bar in from the top. And get through that, get through the collar, get through the bottom of the bottom collar for the needle bar bracket. Turn that little hole towards the front for the screw, and now I'm just going to kind of eyeball the height, because I'm going to have to adjust the height of that and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to snug this up. Da-da-da. And I've removed and replaced the needle bar rocker bracket assembly, including the broken piece. So that's going to be good. So I think the first thing that I would want to do now would be to set the needle bar height properly.